y'all?
What's good? What's good?
We're back.
Yes,
This
come
is
on here.
Treve.
And this is Shellez.
And this is the Mrs.
And Mrs. The podcast. Yes, that's good.
Okay, I messed up.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but it's okay. Look at you looking all beautiful and chocolate.
Thank you, girl.
Yes, girl.
You looking all spiffy and shined
well,
up.
Thank you. I'm loving the shirts.
Thank you. I'm loving your shirt.
Yes,
Hey,
Mrs. and Mrs.
Blue,
the
blue,
podcast.
blue. Check us out.
I'm gonna have to go ahead and give a shout out. Can I give
Go
a shout
ahead,
out? Let me give a shout out right now. Mrs. and Mrs. the podcast gear. Brandy's Crafted Creations. We want to say good. We want to say thank you so much for doing this for us. We appreciate it. It looks so good. She was so happy with it.
Yes.
And
thank you, Brandy.
We thank
you.
Good work. We thank you. We thank you. So listen, you guys, we're gonna open up today with a game that we play to we did this our first year. We got this our first year.
Yeah, I think so.
Just so we can be able to communicate better, get to know one another in a more deeper fashion. Mm-hmm. So we got this. We're not going to tell you what the name of it is, but if you would like to know the name of
because they're not sponsoring us.
See that?
Bottom line.
See that?
Dollars and cents.
See.
But if you would like to know and you are interested in playing it yourself, hit us up in our DMs and we're more than happy to share.
Exactly. So I'm gonna take a card and I'm gonna just ask her what's on this card. She has to answer it. And we're going to swap it out like that. Here we go. You ready?
Yes.
All right. It says, what do you think is the fundamental moral value we share in common? I'm so grateful that she's going first.
He's so rude.
No.
I think the fundamental moral value that we share in common is that we have a spiritual connection to a higher being, just that we believe that there's someone greater than us, mm-hmm. and we worship a being that we both have spirituality. We have a strong spiritual center.
Yes.
And I think that as a whole that is something that we shared in common.
That's good. All right.
You ready for your question?
I'm ready.
Oh, of course I would get the fill in the blank. Some of them are fill-in questions, so you can make up your own. So I'm gonna skip that one. Of course I would get one of those. All right. Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry.
See that?
If you could do it over again, would you still choose me, and why?
If I can do it over again,
tell the truth and shame the devil,
would I still choose you?
Would you choose me?
And why?
All
right. So let me go ahead and answer that. Yes, okay. I would.
Thank you.
And the reason I would do it over again and I would choose you is simply because if anyone knows me, anyone who is out there and you've known me or whatever, you know that I was kind of a hard person or whatever to love. So you made me a little, softer. You made me a little, more lovable to other people. You just brought the goodness out of me, girl.
Thank you, baby.
See that?
That was so
sweet. See that? All right, we got one more, y'all. Here we go.
Okay.
Two more. We have me and then her. All right, you ready? Here we go. Ooh. See, and then this is the thing about this right here. You just don't know. You do not know what questions are gonna pop up like this one. You ready for it? Here it is.
I'm ready.
When was our toughest moment together?
Why is this game in my business?
In the business. But remember, Mrs. and Mrs. the podcast is transparent. Baby, all in our business though. So here we go.
I don't even know how to. What was the question?
Okay, here it is again.
What was the question?
When was our toughest moment together? They didn't say you have to explain. They just said when was our toughest moment together.
May 2021.
May 2021.
May 2021.
And y'all do realize that it is August 2nd, 2021.
So
real stuff.
real stuff.
Real stuff. Hey, what's going on, you guys? I see y'all. Thank y'all for joining us. Thank y'all. Right now, we in this, icebreaker moment. So, yes, Treva, here we go. Second question. You're next.
So, okay. I'm not gonna run from it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna run from it.
Oh,
All right. I'm trying to manage the comments
and you're
too.
doing an
Thank
awesome
you.
job.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. What is our biggest challenge as a couple?
Oh.
It's real disrespectful tonight, these cards.
What is our biggest challenge
As a couple? Yes.
as a couple? They are so wrong for this.
We're honest and transparent.
I'm gonna say our biggest challenge as a couple right now is getting our sex schedules on point. I'm just being real.
What?
That's what I would think. I don't know.
Okay. Well, it's your question to answer.
Yeah,
so,
that's the only thing I can think of.
Okay.
I mean, just the schedules of sex.
Okay.
I mean,
okay.
What am I supposed? Okay.
I'm not upset. I'm not mad. I can't.
Yes. Somebody says, look, Marcus said, is y'all gonna share y'all gonna drop y'all
secrets of
skin
skin secrets.
Y'all stop. It's a glow. Oh, y'all stop.
It's the ring light.
Oh my goodness.
It's the ring light.
She gave it away. There it is. So listen, you guys, y'all know that episode 1, we kind of dropped like what we were gonna start the podcast and how we're gonna, keep it flowing or whatever. So here it is. Once again, Marriage Minute.
Here we go.
Marriage Minute. So this topic of Marriage Minute, I think last episode we talked about communication. And this topic is a topic that we are going to keep going. We're going to keep continuing talking about, and it's about mental health, right? So before, we're educators, so I just want to, I'm not demean anybody, but mental health, the way we talk about it, a person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. I really believe that y'all needed to hear that emotional part in it. A person's condition with regard to their psychological and emotional well-being. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about that a lot on this podcast. Why? Because we deal with mental health. This is one of the reasons that we started the podcast, because we wanted to, how does mental health affect us, LGBTQ, Black LGBTQ plus, people. So our Marriage Minute tonight is about knowing your mental health. Check your mental. So I'm going to have Treva start us off. First question is, Treva, I want you to share how you shared your mental health status when we started dating.
Yeah. So I don't like using the term struggle with. I'm still working on the right language, but I am diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I take medication to help manage that. And in probably about a year before we met, I realized that medication was necessary for me to have balance. Okay. And that in the process of that, I'd gone off things, I'd gone on things, I had different ups and downs. And when we met, I was at the point where I knew that I needed to be on my medicine, and I needed to, excuse me.
It's okay. It's okay.
I needed to have a partner who was going to be supportive and understanding. And I didn't know, I had never been that open with my situation or my diagnosis before then, because I was inconsistent with my treatment. Okay. And so at the point that we were meeting, this was important for me to manage. Okay. And so I wanted to be honest with you, because I had dated someone who had a more extreme form of mental health
Okay.
distress or whatever it is. And they were unmedicated a lot of times. And it was very stressful and it was very difficult to watch them struggle and deal with things. And I didn't want you as my partner to have to do that without full awareness of what I was working through. And so probably within the first week,
Yeah.
I shared it, because if you were going to reject that role, then I
Yes.
would rather you do it then
Then
than
further
us
down.
get into this relationship
Yeah.
and it come up and things change when our feelings are more invested.
Got you. Got you.
So it was important to me to let you know that I deal with depression and mental, anxiety, and that I'm on medication, because there was a level of awareness that you would need to have in order to understand me.
Exactly.
And that was, kind of how I introduced what I was working with. And yeah, that was
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So she dropped. We were probably at my apartment watching football, probably, and
Realistically.
and just having conversation. We were talking. We were just talking, and something. I don't know if a commercial or something came on or something like that, and she started talking and about it, and I was just honest with her. Listen, we all have something. Thank you for being transparent, but at that time, of course, did I know exactly what it entailed? No, I did not. Of course, we all have our, our stereotypes
Right.
around mental health and mental illness. So
Right.
I didn't know, and she was very honest, and I accepted that because we were getting to know one another. But she was very serious about, okay, I need to know where your head is about it, because if something happens, you need to know how to, engage. So, yeah, my response to her was that at this point in my life, it was that we'll work this thing together,
Right.
whatever it is, and
Right.
whatever comes our way, we'll work it together. So that was my response. So, tell us, Treva, how since you dealt with it more than I, how can one's partner's mental health status break down in communication in your marriage, and what does it look like when they are aware of the mental health status and when they're not?
Okay, hold on. Let me look
Ah,
at this. Okay, so the question was how can not communicating that cause a breakdown
okay,
in the
all
relationship
right.
or in the
That I'm
communication?
just
And so no, I'm trying to make sense of it for me, because I did not write that well. But I think that if a person is either unaware or they're unwilling to be honest, it can create additional stress in the relationship, because there are factors that are affecting how you are communicating with that person that are beyond your awareness.
Right.
So if I'm dealing with depression and I'm lashing out and I'm unaware of why I'm lashing out, that
Right.
it's a product of the depression or a response to the depression, then the problems begin to get exacerbated in the relationship, because we don't know the real root of it.
Yeah.
And so if there's not clarity or acceptance or awareness, it can definitely cause breakdowns in relationships.
Yeah, I was grateful. It helped me. It helped me realize things that I was dealing with as far as mental health. So it helped me by understanding, what she was going through, and her talking about it to me directly, and get me to, read upon and research things that I was even going through. Like right now, I knew that I dealt with depression. Now I know what brings on my depression is anxiety, and we'll get into it more. But it was just like this, y'all know we were in a pandemic,
Right.
and this is when
For
I
real.
started understanding that I dealt with this mental health, these illnesses as well. Though these are not just what people call schizophrenic, or
Right.
these are anxiety. It's
Right.
depression. It's things that whatever triggers your emotional, psychological state, you deal with this.
There's
It's mental
something
health,
there.
right? So even that, and now I know how because we communicate about it, because we talked about it, I know how to deal with mine. And what brings us to our next question before we get into
Sure.
it, what can couples do to help navigate this together?
So, of course,
Of
communication, going
course.
back to last week. But a lot of times mental health matters are very sensitive, very,
Yes.
very tender areas and topics. And they must be handled carefully, for everyone.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what to say, there are a lot of times that people make the mistake of saying something that's offensive to the
Exactly.
person, whatever that might be. And so I think the first piece is communication. You
Exactly.
have to be willing to talk to the person about whatever it is that you're feeling, even if you can't name it in a technical, clinical way, even
Yeah.
if you can't, call it anxiety or depression or whatever it might be for you. I think that the first thing you have to do is communicate with
Exactly.
with whoever, your partner, your friend, whoever the relationship is that you're having this with, and then seek help. Because your family is not your therapy, your partner is
Talk.
not your therapist.
Talk.
People have their own things that they have to work through, and sometimes our wounds trigger theirs,
That's
and you
it.
don't want to be in a situation where
Yes.
you're wanting someone to hold space for you and they can't hold space for
There it
themselves.
is.
And so it's really necessary for you to be able to find resources for the people who aren't ready to go to a therapist,
Yep.
because that is a step.
Yep.
Be willing to Google, be willing to look up, be willing to speak
There
to
you go.
someone, be willing to just reach out and find help, answers. And it really is as simple as Googling to me, Googling whatever it is that you're feeling, and I promise you something will pop up that you can connect with and resonate
Yes.
with, that can give you something helpful. But you have to begin to find ways to address what is wounding you or what's
Right.
hurting
And
you.
the way that we can address that, you guys, is really just seeking that help,
Mm-hmm.
that counseling, that
Mm-hmm.
therapy. Therapy is good. As I said, as at the start of the pandemic, I felt that I was going to crash.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't balance it like I would normally balance it, and I had to seek out help. She
Mm-hmm.
couldn't do it for me. She couldn't just be
Because I was
there.
trying to balance my own.
Exactly,
And it was
exactly,
no affront to you. It was
exactly. Oh
not
yeah,
to and it was hard, because I'm like, what kind of wife am I if I can't help her or hold her up or whatever? But I had to be honest with myself that
exactly.
I'm barely holding myself
Self up.
together.
Exactly.
And as much as I love you, it's like,
You got
friend.
but then that's the thing, and that was the thing, that communication, that marriage piece, that hey, listen babe, I can't do it. You already know what
Right.
I'm dealing with. Listen, you're gonna have to seek out that help for yourself. It's nothing wrong
And that
with
was
it.
the hardest thing to say.
It's nothing wrong with it, and you have to say that. And if you and your partner know what you can say to
Right.
one another and how to say it to each other, where it doesn't seem like, oh, she's telling me I'm whatever. And that's the thing. Another thing, just because someone says to you, hey, why don't you go see a counselor for that? Or if they're not calling you crazy.
Mhm.
That's not what that
And
means.
I'm also going to say, just kind of, you were saying, how to say things to your partner. The reality is, in a pandemic, nobody's saying things right. You're just not. And one thing that I'm beginning to understand is that in our human relationships, in our human conditions, we are very imperfect in our methods of communication, and we are very likely
Yes.
going to hurt someone that we care about and we love.
Yeah.
And the work, or the relationship part that kind of keeps you together, is your ability or willingness to go back and say, okay, let's talk about what I meant to say, or
Yeah.
what I was trying to communicate. Because if I am already hurting and already on a thin line with my own mental
Mm-hmm.
health, I am likely not going to be kind when I'm telling you to figure it out for
Exactly.
yourself.
Right.
And that's just real.
Honest.
And I want to be cautious around, well, make sure you're saying it in a way. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes your best is just to say, I need some space, and it may come off harsh, but that's what I can offer at that moment, because this is too much, and so I think that the important part is being able to come back and have the conversation or fix it on the other side. But if you mess it up and you flub it and you aren't kind when you say it, it's normal. Like if you're hurting and you're stressed and you're already tender, you may not handle it perfectly, but that is also a response of the stress.
Well, here's some comments. I know Rashawn said you must be willing to listen. Of course, you have to be willing to listen. And Pamela said, or they don't know what to say, which is of course another comment. In my case, it was my partner was not willing to allow me to go to therapy. Out of fear that I was going to bash. That's not it all the time. Allow the person to seek the help that they are starving for. Absolutely. Oh my goodness, yes. And then that's another thing. You get with someone, be with someone who cares about every aspect of you. And just that comment was not willing to let you go. That was attributed. Yeah.
That was a flag.
So
if they're it was more she was afraid that you were going to understand the truth about her, and that you were going to make a decision that involved moving away from her. So that's more of what that fear was around. Like, oh my God, she's going to get stronger, or she's going to get more powerful in herself, and I might lose her. So that's definitely, if you have a partner who is not supportive of that is definitely a signal.
So listen,
this is good.
I love it. I love it. Thank y'all again for tuning in. Listen, this next segment is check your mental. Listen, this is when we have conversations from our couch, right? Even if they're virtually, there's still conversations from our couch. So this is our first episode with a guest, and I'm excited. I know that you guys will be excited for what this person has to say. So I'm gonna give it to Treve. Go ahead and introduce.
So our guest, our therapist guest tonight is Ms. Devaney Knight. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I wanted to make sure that she had the opportunity to let us know who she is and how she came to this space. So want to make sure that we bring in Miss Devaney. Hey.
Hello. Good evening. I'm well tonight. How are you guys?
All right. Awesome.
Good. Very excited to be here.
Yeah. So listen, why don't you go ahead and reintroduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do. Right. Let's go ahead.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Hello. My name is Devaney Knight. As Treve said, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also the clinical director of Westlake Houston Counseling, which is a group private practice located in the Westlake Houston area. And the work that I do is primarily with working with individuals, couples, and families that are experiencing a wide range of different issues and concerns that they are wanting to work through. I do that full time. Then I also teach at the college level, teach psychology courses to college level students, which I also love. I enjoy the most, sitting with people, watching them kind of go through those moments of just like, right? And so I really love the work that I do, and it's very, very, very rewarding. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys tonight to talk about all things mental health, especially for the Black LGBTQIA community.
Yes. Thank you. And we are excited for you to be here.
And it was really important for us to have you once we found out that that is a community that you serve. It was very important to have you here as a therapist, because we want to make sure that we have specialized folks that people can go to, that we put a face to, oh, this is someone that I can speak to. This does exist for our community, and this is someone who I can feel safe being myself with. So thank you so much for being here.
For sure.
Let's jump on in. Y'all want to jump on in it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So listen, we just gave a, probably a wide definition of
Right.
mental health.
A
So
Google
right, a
definition.
Google definition, and we have so we want you to just what is meant by mental health and why is it such a hot topic right now?
Yes,
Right
yes, yes.
now.
I think you defined it beautifully earlier. When we talk about mental health, we're talking about not just how we're functioning in life, but like our inner workings, our psychological process, all of the things that the rest of our lives kind of depend on being well. If you think about, if I want my phone to work, I got to plug it up, right? We kind of know that instinctively. But what about ourselves, right? Your mental health, the reason why it's so important is I would say that it's so directly connected and linked to other ways of being well. If
Okay.
you want a well relationship, as you guys are talking about on the Mrs. and Mrs. podcast, if you
Mhm.
want a better relationship, your mental health, it really helps if you're
Right.
self aware. If you want better communication, well, how communication was modeled to you growing up
Mhm.
falls under mental health. If
Hmm.
you want better finances, if you want, better physical health,
Yes.
a lot of that hinges on, right, your mental health, and they work bidirectionally.
Mhm.
And so I would say that the reason why it's so important and the reason why it's so necessary to focus on is that we're noticing a common thread between a lot of the issues that people deal with, what they report, being linked to their mental and emotional wellness.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. And so when we look at the news, we hear a lot about mental health in the way of what's happening with famous people. For example, Simone Biles and the
Mhm.
conversation around her pulling out of the Olympics competition for herself.
Mhm.
Naomi
Mhm.
Osaka, I'm sorry, and other elite athletes or their celebrities, and it feels very oh, they can have mental health. They have time to deal with their mental health
Mhm.
because they're rich, right? So is that accurate? Is that something that is true? Like if
Mhm.
I'm not wealthy, I don't have the luxury of taking the time to deal with my mental health. What does this even mean? What does it
Mm.
mean to deal with your mental health? What are
Mhm.
these announcements that these celebrities are making to the world? What are they really supposed to be telling us?
Yeah, yeah. I love that question because, I think what's important to note first and foremost is that mental health is an equal opportunity condition.
Mm.
It doesn't really care much about how much money you have, where you live, what color you are, although those things that I just listed can
Mhm.
contribute to how
Mhm.
well you are in terms of your access to certain things in
Mhm.
life when we talk about privilege and power and things like that, not dismissing systemic oppression, right? That's
Mhm.
part of this.
Right.
But I think that part of the permission to have those mental health is that when you see celebrities being forward and honest or about their condition, I
Mhm.
think the difference between them and say the average person who might otherwise not speak on it or not, be known to have an issue is that they do have a platform.
Right.
Their wealth allows them access to certain resources that
Okay.
might not necessarily be accessible to a person with fewer resources.
Okay.
So I think that it's a really good thing that we're actually seeing people of color, actually athletes of
Mhm.
color, be
Right.
really public and forward about this and using their platform to do this. I see it as a very healthy and positive thing,
Yes.
for people who otherwise wouldn't feel the permission. So I
Yes.
think that's one of the defining differences. What does having more resources give you access to? What
Yeah.
additional options do those resources give you access to?
Yes. And I also think that it gives language to people who may not otherwise recognize what
Right.
they're experiencing,
Mhm.
right? So if you
Mhm.
start to hear a Simone Biles
Mhm.
describe what her anxiety felt like,
Mhm.
as a person who is living with it, you're like, oh wait, is that what I'm experiencing every
Right.
day?
Right.
And it
Mhm.
gives you
Mhm.
that language so that you can get the resources, because I feel like a lot of times for people, they don't even know, especially Black people, we don't even know that what we're experiencing or feeling in our bodies might be a trauma
Mhm.
response, or it
Mhm.
might be some other manifestation of a mental health need that needs addressing, and
Mhm.
we don't recognize that until someone puts
Right.
language to that.
And
Mhm.
I like what you said. It says I like when you said that it's good to see these type of people coming out
Right.
and talking about it, but they're when they come out and talking about it, people are calling them weak,
Right.
you know, and it's like, why are we associating them coming out saying that, hey, I'm not good, I'm not well today, as weakness? So and it gives off, I understand what you said as far as language, but it gives off to other people that if we struggle with our mental health, we are weak people. And why do, if you could just touch on that a little bit, why do we
And how do we
associate
respond
and
to that? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's a big one too. I would say that the when you think historically, you know, as a people, we're resilient, right? Past
Right.
many years of oppression, still going through present oppressions and things like that. And I think there's a unspoken understanding that you're supposed to be able to take a licking and keep on ticking.
Yeah.
yes.
That's been one of the very like pervasive messages across generations. Like, you know, if your grandmother could do it, you can do it, and this is easier for you, right? And we throw a lot of judgment around. We love doing that, you know,
Right.
throwing judgment onto the
Absolutely.
situation. But a lot of times it's the concern of, you know, the perception. It's the concern of, you know, how will you be seen, perceived by others, you know, and I would say that those concerns are very legitimate, you know, to some extent, right? We have, the community has very real reasons for the fear or
Right.
the lack of trust,
Right.
because this was not therapy.
Mhm.
Psychotherapy was
Listen.
not originally designed with us in mind,
Right.
right?
Right.
So we have
Right.
to be willing to kind of call a thing and say,
Yeah.
how much of that is reasonable, valid, to be expected?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where on the other hand is it costing us, and what damage are these messages doing, you know, to us?
Yeah.
And so we have to really be able to get clear on that. But I think the inherent unspoken message of you're supposed to be very strong, you're supposed to be above it,
Yeah.
you know, you're spiritual people. You should not
That's
be
what I was gonna
looking
go to.
secularly for help.
Pray out.
Um,
Pray
Yeah.
there's
out.
like there's all those different things, and
Mhm.
those messages and those stories, those narratives have real origin. They
Yeah.
have
Mhm.
real beginning, but
Mhm.
some of us are very reluctant to
To release.
release it
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we're very afraid of approaching something that
Mhm.
is very foreign, like very new to us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that's what I would say about that. I see
Yeah.
it a lot. I mean, a lot of what
Mhm.
we do as mental health professionals is eradicating stigma. Well, how do you do that? You do it by telling the truth. You do
Yeah.
it by
Mhm.
telling your story. You're doing it by, you know, creating some community amongst those who are suffering.
Mhm.
Well, that brings us to therapy.
Hmm.
This is
Therapy.
that's you talked about it, and
Mhm.
we talked about it on the last episode as, hey, it's okay. It is okay to get therapy. It is okay
Yeah.
to talk to people, you know, to get the help that you need. And you know, that, like you said, there's a lot of stigma around it. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about. So just tell what is therapy and how does it help with addressing one's mental health needs. Like I stated prior that I didn't begin going to therapy until the pandemic, until I didn't have another out. I had to seek that help. You
Yeah.
know, I had to get someone to talk me off of that ledge. So just talk to us about that, because listen, we grew up right
Mhm.
in the church where
Mhm.
people say, "Oh, you don't need no therapy.
No.
You just need to talk to who?
Jesus.
Jesus."
Right.
Hmm.
So talk to us about
Take
that.
it to the Lord in
Yeah, take it
prayer.
to
Yes,
right.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
talk to the people a little bit about what therapy is and how it helps us to address our mental health.
Yes, yes. Well, therapy is a process that involves a person working with a professional. A professional should be a professional, not a self-proclaimed one
Mhm.
who is
Right.
vetted by way of their education,
Yeah.
their
Mhm.
training, and their experience. And usually states set the rules for what that is. So,
Mhm.
you know, the person that you just met from what verify who they are,
Right.
right? But therapy really is a global term used to describe the healing process. I mean,
Yeah.
in just very simple terms.
Mhm.
Therapy can look a number of different ways. You
Mhm.
can go to therapy by yourself. You can go to therapy with a partner. You can go to therapy with a friend. You can go with your whole family. You can go because you want to, or you can go because you're mandated. But
Oh, wow.
therapy looks a number of different ways. And there's like
Okay.
400, last time I read, over
Mm.
400 different types of therapy.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
They all range in their degree of how effective they are. But really, therapy, the umbrella of therapy, if just to really simplify it, it's the healing process.
Yeah.
It's the exchange between
Okay.
the professional and the client. Client usually comes in with some distinctive problem that's affecting their life, that's affecting their wellness, and they're really clear on how much it's costing them.
Mm-hmm.
The degree to which they want to change is a different story, but they're
Yeah.
at least in some distress. That's the average person who goes to therapy. Why is it needed? Why is it necessary? I will say that people sometimes will choose therapy as a last hope,
Mm.
right? Like they go when like the
Exhausted.
limb is
Everything
just
else.
hanging on by the skin, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they feel really motivated because there's something that has happened that has been nailed in the coffin. I now need to go and talk to somebody who does not know me, who
Right.
has no skin in the game, and who does not benefit one way or another in terms of what I choose to do with my life. And
Mhm.
so in that regard, you get the safety, you get the comfort of talking to someone who is not going to be like, now you know you should not have done that because look what happened, right?
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
people want to be able to sit and be heard and to share space and have space made for them. And that's kind of how I would describe, the process of therapy. And a lot of people find it really necessary, even when there's not any fires necessarily to put out. It's like, I just need to
Mhm.
check in with my therapist, make sure my mind is right, and then I'm good for 2 more weeks, right?
Mhm.
And so people vary in the degree of what they need from therapy.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
And you actually answered one of my other questions. I was like, so is therapy something that someone has to feel like, oh gosh, once I've started, this is something I've got to be in forever because, mental health is something that's ongoing work. Like you said, it's the healing process. So that was my question. It's like, does someone come into this thinking that they have to expect a long-term commitment through
Mhm.
this, or is it something that they can come in and get some help and get some relief and move on? How
Yeah,
can they expect, what can they expect to experience with this
yeah, yeah. I will say that a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that that first session is a
It's
one
gonna
and
fix
done.
it all. One and done.
I'm like, no.
That
If
was
I
me.
love
only.
we have
That
a
was
little bit
you. That
more.
was me. That was me. You just talk to him, and we gonna
Yeah,
be done.
yeah. And because therapy is so vulnerable and it has the potential to bring up really uncomfortable feelings, I mean, a person doesn't want to sit in that forever, right? I
Mhm.
get that, right? But I will say that what a client can expect really depends on their needs. So sometimes people are dealing with, they're in therapy for a very brief period of time. There's certain types of treatments that are brief in nature.
Mhm.
And then you have ones, different other kinds of treatment that are more longer term. I think that it comes down to what the issue is, how pervasive it is, how motivated the person is to really examine, self-reflect, and then
Mhm.
like engage in whatever changes. But some stuff is just like this deep soul,
Yeah.
like, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, and my young inner child is like running stuff,
Yes.
and so sometimes there are cases where it's a little bit longer because there's a lot that gets unearthed. We see a lot of that sometimes with trauma. We see a lot of
Mhm.
that with family
Mhm.
disconnect. And so what a person can expect is the space to at least ask the questions. Hey, I'm dealing with this. I don't really want to be here for very long. Are my expectations
Yeah.
of therapy reasonable? So a lot of it is what we call like the psychoeducation,
Mhm.
helping a person to understand that whatever like problem that they're dealing with could be influenced by a lot of different things. And
Right.
we're not going to figure it out in one session. I'm meeting you and I'm a stranger to you and I barely know you. Were you hoping to leave today with this all figured out?
Right. Right.
Because, we have to talk
That's a
about your
lot of pressure on the
expectations of that.
therapist.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is a lot
Yeah.
of pressure on the process.
Mhm. 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 And a lot of times they don't mean to
Sure,
be,
sure, sure.
rushed about it, but the distress is so
Yeah,
high
so high. Got
that
it.
it's motivating an urgency
Right.
around, fixing it,
And if
right?
I've
Fixing it.
decided to take this step that's
Mhm.
so drastic, I'm really expecting a big bang for my buck.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
And
right.
and they're in so much pain, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You wanna go to the emergency room to get relief. And
Yeah.
so
Ugh.
Yeah.
Whew.
it's unfortunately that it takes a little bit more of a process with mental health.
So
Mhm.
as y'all talking about it takes a little bit more process, right?
Mhm.
So I figured that out,
Right.
especially being a Black lesbian woman.
Mm.
Let's go into all of them.
Please.
Black, lesbian,
Christian
Christian, in the ministry,
in the South.
in the all of it, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
for me, it's important. So it's unpacking a lot. And some is trauma, like as you
Mhm.
say, right? So I want you to answer, because this was very important to me as a Black lesbian, that how can therapy be useful to us, same gender loving or queer couples? How is important is that? How useful is that in a
Yeah.
marriage, in a relationship?
Mhm. Hugely, hugely. Those multiple identities.
Yes.
I
Yes.
tell you, the intersection of all of that
Yes. Thank
is
you.
huge and major, because you
Mhm.
can't negate one without the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's
You
all in the same
can't.
thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
This is the number one reason why I really, really, really promote this, and also in my work with the community as well, is I watched I've been saying I've been on this Billy Porter diet for a little while, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
and that really powerful interview that he did with Tamron Hall, one of the things he
Mhm.
said, and I'm paraphrasing here,
Mhm.
is that when a person in the church comes out, when a person in the church comes out,
Come on
the
now.
very first thing that happens to them is they have their religion, their God taken away from them.
Yes.
I mean, it almost kind of makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
And can I
So,
can I can I throw
go ahead.
something
Go
right
Yeah.
ahead.
there?
Go
And,
ahead.
Mhm.
and I hate it. I hate to interrupt, but it's like, and we've been taught that is our everything.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
literally, you are stripping me away from my everything. You
Yeah.
are telling me that the thing that is supposed to love me above all, it was all
Mhm.
a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's
It
okay.
just
Deep. It was
really
deep.
Yeah.
it shook me because
Mhm.
that's so real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
are we supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
How does
Yeah.
anything make sense after that?
Right.
Go ahead. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Oh, you're good. Listen, I couldn't say it better. Absolutely. It's one of the first things to happen. So what
Mm.
happens is, from that is, there's a breakaway of a sense of safety. So if
Yeah.
I can't feel the safety with these people over here who are like Christ and who are supposed to love me,
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
it, it causes you eventually to have to deconstruct your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I talk about, same gender loving people who
Yeah.
come from Christian upbringing, that's another layer,
Yes, ma'am.
right? When you're thinking about how much oppression you get from the outside,
Mhm.
part of being in this community, whether you have always been out, or you came out as a kid or a teenager, or you come out when you're 50,
Right.
you still have to go through some of the same stages of
Mhm.
self-acceptance and redefining, like, wow, this view of God I
Wow.
had in a box is actually not true. So if that's not true, then what is true? I got to find that.
Yeah.
Therapy is very useful
Wow.
for that kind of process. And that's why I say it's also good too, when you're researching or you're trying to find someone who can really connect with you in that way.
Mhm.
It's okay to be able to say, listen, I grew up with faith,
Mhm.
but I don't quite know where I stand on that right now.
Mhm.
I've been hurt. I'd like to not be hurt, but I don't see
Mhm.
how that's possible.
Mhm.
It's okay to actually speak those words. And so I would say that from the standpoint of the spirituality, from the standpoint of being out in the world, in the workplace, LGBTQ people do not all look the same,
Right.
right? They do not all, pass, one setting versus another. And so those are really important issues that really can be worked through with a safe person,
Mhm.
who is
Mhm.
sworn to keep your secrets,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
to keep you safe, and to
Right.
make sure that the connection that they build with you, because that's a therapist's job. A therapist's job is to create the conditions where safety can happen,
Mm. Mm.
right? Is to create the conditions where safety can happen. Because
Mhm.
where there's safety, then you can begin to trust and
Yes.
Trust and be
heal.
honest. Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Yes. And all of that just kind of shook me up, right? Because I'm thinking about you, my
Okay.
beautiful wife.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Um and truth and transparency,
Please.
right?
Please.
And so, my wife is a minister. She is a lesbian, and this was not her declaration, like every time she sits up in it and sticks her chest out and says she's a Black lesbian, I just want to cry
Mhm.
because that wasn't how I met her
No.
Mhm.
at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to be able to acknowledge I am called to the ministry
Yes.
and in this state. Like I just am so grateful for your willingness to have this conversation on all of those levels,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because that is huge.
And I have to be honest, it was our communication, just talking, figuring this thing out with us dating and therapy.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Mhm.
so yeah, this is new for me. This is new for me. So,
And so for, just thinking about what she was saying as far as like the community needing just the safe space, and
yeah,
needing to be able to have it validated, like you are experiencing so many levels of trauma or so many areas where you're being impacted. Let's do this work, especially when it's like, oh God, my
yeah,
God hates me.
yeah,
I had a
Mhm.
post, I was in a group earlier and someone posted a question and it was like, is being gay a sin or not? Because I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong, but I also don't understand how I can be going to hell if God loves me. Like how?
yeah,
Like someone legit asked that question and the person responded like your salvation has nothing to do with your orientation.
yeah,
That is not
Mm.
true. And they swiftly, and so how many of us have carried that question for years and years and years and never had a place to get that succinct of an answer
hmm
to let you know that you are valid and valuable and you are fine as you are, and know
Mhm.
your God does not hate you.
yeah. And then that
Mhm.
that, 'cause that
Mhm.
creates trauma.
Right.
That creates
Yes.
another trauma.
Yes.
So yeah, one of our comments says, "Ooh, it hurts. Me being me who serves in every setting and worship, being that place of safe haven, and then to be pulled aside and basically told you can't be in front of the congregation
Mm.
living the way you do.
Wow.
Slap in the face, a stab in the back.
Yes.
Yes,
That.
yes,
Absolutely.
That.
yes.
Yeah.
And as I said, this is that creates more trauma and more for me. That's anxiety. That
Mhm.
causes a depressive state.
Mhm.
To just
I'm going to be rejected.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
If I just be authentically who I am, you know what
Mhm.
I'm saying. So yeah, that is. Woo, that is something. So what? What's this? The
Mhm.
next one that says what? When and why should couples integrate therapy into the relationship? Yes, when and why. I like when and I like the why.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
and why.
I'm writing down when and why.
Yes. When and why,
Yeah.
Devaney? When and
Because
why?
let me tell you something. I'll start answering a question and I'll end up somewhere else. So I
It's all
just like
right.
make
It's
sure
all
Same
I'm
right.
clear.
here.
That's okay.
There's
Same
just
here.
so much to talk
To
about
Yes,
share.
and
with
Yes.
that's
this
why
topic.
Yes.
that's why it's going to be ongoing, and we're going to have you back and specific things from this conversation. I'm hoping that there are specific.
Right. That people start to say, hey, can we talk about? Is
Yes,
Yeah.
this something? Because, we can talk about what we got, but we definitely know that people all have, that there are people that have all kinds of
yeah,
questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For
for
sure.
sure.
yeah.
Absolutely. The when and the why. Let me first address the when, because I noticed that this comes up a lot. In
Mhm.
fact, I will say that during the pandemic, I had a really hard time as a healer, as a therapist, the stress of carrying and weighing, of course, having appropriate boundaries and home
Yes.
life versus work life, but like relationships that were just simply disintegrating.
Disintegrate. Yeah.
And what
Mhm.
COVID was the last nail in the coffin. So
Mhm.
let's first talk when.
Wow.
Couples, same-sex couples included, same-sex heterosexual couples, a lot of times they will begin seeking out therapy when they are beyond the point of repair
Oh,
Mhm.
because of the stigma, because of what is this going to mean that we have to go to some person that doesn't even know us to tell us that we have problems.
Mhm.
Because of the stigma, they wait, they put it off, they blow it off, they
yeah.
become passive, they become dismissive, they become indifferent. and then they decide to call us. And so
Right
when they're
before
coming
divorce,
in,
right
right
before
when,
divorce.
yeah, this is like our last stop
Yeah.
before we have, because we kind of already decided,
Yeah.
right? But we're here saying we want to save the relationship, right?
Right. With that
And
kind of energy.
and so that sets us up for having to do a lot of double duty work to just
Mhm.
kind of, again, first creating safety, first creating trust, all of those things, right? Um, and a lot of times what ends up happening is those very couples, they have to sit in that reality of the damage they
Mhm.
have co-created,
Right.
Mm.
right? So the win is, as soon as you should notice that you start to begin to feel less connected with your partner,
Okay.
you're finding things to argue about. You're not really arguing about that. You're arguing about something else that you don't quite have the words for yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, distance, separation, right? If you're thinking about, maybe we need to separate, that would be a great time to
Right.
begin, enlisting the help. The why is first for each individual person. When you
Mm.
go to therapy as a couple, you're first, I'm going to suggest something that's really selfish.
Mm.
You're first there for you first.
Mhm.
The relationship problems is what inspired you showing up, but the therapy process has to first be to benefit yourself so that you can help the relationship.
That's
Does that
good.
make
Good.
sense?
That's
Like,
good.
I'm here to
That
save this thing. Why? Because we're married. Okay.
yeah.
And we've been married for almost a decade.
Right.
Okay. What are your other reasons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to get really, really clear on, what is this costing us?
Yeah.
How is it damaging us? Maybe
Mhm.
we should be, willing to reach out sooner than, one of us has the good luggage pulled out the
Right.
closet and we getting ready to fill it up,
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why we try to eradicate stigma, because if we can get ahead of it,
Mhm.
it starts to become preventative
Mhm.
care.
So I know that a lot of people have been introduced to premarital
Yeah.
therapy.
Mhm,
How is that different? Of
mhm.
course, it's premarital, but how is it different in its function to ongoing marriage therapy?
Yeah, yeah. That's a great question too, because I've provided premarital counseling, and then obviously postmarital, which is couples therapy.
Mhm.
But I will say that couples therapy traditionally helps to address problems that have come up, right?
Okay.
Premarital therapy helps you to consider and rationally think about the challenges you might encounter, that
Yeah.
you might
Mhm.
consider.
Mhm.
So, for example, a lot of couples come together with very different relationships to money,
Mm.
and to finances. One person says, money's a resource, we have to use it wisely. And then you might have another person that says, I'm only going to live one time. I want to treat life like,
I know.
like one big
Right.
outlet market. And I want to,
Yeah.
I want to live.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes they go into marriage without that clarity.
Right.
Or they go into marriage thinking, we're probably going to have about, 2, 3 kids,
Mhm.
we're probably going to, get us a surrogate, and the other person's thinking, oh, we're going to adopt one child, so,
Right.
so it's really important to really have an understanding, not so that you're defining what the relationship is going to be, but
Okay.
it at least opens the opportunity for you to talk about, you know, yourselves as individuals, how you experience loving relationships, what your experience of that has been,
Mhm.
what things are you bringing to the relationship,
Yeah.
and what challenges might there be ahead for us to kind of work through. Where are
Mm.
the points where there's not a lot of alignment,
Right.
and is there anything of this that would be deal breaking for
Right.
either person? That's
Got it.
important
Right.
too. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like this question, because like we started again, pandemic brought about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Couples therapy was one of them.
Mhm.
And we that helped us to communicate better in that situation. It helped us to see one another. It really provided a lot. And it got so good. We moved, we got bigger, we got a bigger space. Everything was going great.
Mm.
Everything was going great.
Mhm.
We stopped. So this next question is just like,
Well,
okay, go ahead.
we didn't just stop. I don't want it to be like, oh, club, we done. No, that's not what happened. It was more like our therapist was celebrating us because we had done well
Right.
on our assignments,
Right.
our growth, our connection.
Right.
And so she was like, okay, so we can move from every 2 weeks to let's do a month, or, integrate some date nights. Like, she just kind of gave us homework,
Yeah.
and she was going to give us tune-ups. So it appeared to Rochelle
Yeah.
that we were done.
Yeah, I thought it was it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so but the thing is like, so when things are peaceful, when things are like that in the marriage, do we need to continue? Is it good to continue? Should we take a break? What should it look like? When it becomes peaceful, should we continue to go to just
kind of that same question of is therapy forever?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
for this marriage, is this a bill?
Yeah.
Is this a bill now? Should I put her on
But
auto
when things are peaceful, like, no, seriously, when things are peaceful, when things are going great, like right now, things are going great, right? And it's just like, so what should we do in
and
those
I'm like,
sessions?
please get me to the therapist, because things are going great.
Right.
And I'm now scared because I don't want it to get to the point of catastrophe and Nagasaki for us to get help.
So my question would be like,
talk about things.
So what should we do to work on,
what do we do in times of peace?
When it's good.
Right.
Yes. So I love this conversation, because when I tell you, when I sit down with couples, sometimes I will ask them to commit to the process of therapy. I describe what that looks like. I let them know that the real therapy that they're actually going to do takes place when they leave my office. And then when they come back, that's the therapy, right? We come here to regroup, look at what's working, what's not working, fine tune. Okay, now let's go out and do the therapy.
Right.
And so I would say that therapy is not, indefinite, right? Some people choose to stay in therapy with the same therapist for years and years and years. They have the reasons for that. But to be honest with you, as a therapist, really my goal is actually that you fire me.
Right.
My goal is to get fired.
I'm trying
to work myself out of a job, right? And so I would say that, when therapy is ending or when it's appropriate to kind of close it out, when the goals that you say you have at the beginning, better communication, better manage our emotions, I'm going to take my medication, I'm going to, do that consistently. When those goals have been met, that's an indicator that you have worked through that issue. Doesn't mean that the issue is never going to come up again. It might shape shift to something else, and so it's important to be able to find a therapist that, when you're wrapping up, you're picking somebody that when you wrap up with them, you can reach out to them in the future and say, hey, listen,
tune up.
So we gonna need your support. What do you have coming open? And I will say that I have clients that have, come and gone out of therapy as well as appropriate. But, the goal of the therapist is not to, render you useless to use the tools that you've learned in therapy, right? You're going to be doing that anyway. But there can be an anxiety that comes up for clients around the end. Like, what am I going to do now? I've only been doing well because I've been talking to you every single week. And so they kind of develop this narrative that I can't make my own decisions. I can't be better. I can't continue to do better without this really consistent thing to check in with. And so, and that can be worked out, in therapy, but I would say, look at your goals. When you first sit down, a good therapist is going to say, how will we know that this has been helpful? How will we know that you need to fire me? What are we going to be looking for to have happen when that happens? Because when I notice it, I'm going to try to help make you aware of that.
That's good.
And I also will say too, I've been adopting this thing where I say, listen, when you leave a therapist's office for the first time, you are likely going to feel probably about 2 to 3 times worse after you leave, right? Because you're just talking about a lot of things, right? And then you'll notice, like, through ongoing conversations, you start noticing that you get better. I ask them, if you notice that things are getting worse, come back.
Right. Okay.
Right. If you're this for a couple of months, it's kind of going well, we're meeting every couple of weeks and like, oh, we feel good. Okay, but
Mhm.
all our goals met. Our goals aren't met. You're feeling better, but your
Mhm.
goals aren't met.
Got it.
Still come back,
Keep working.
Yeah.
right?
Got it.
Yeah.
So,
Got it. That's
Yeah.
good.
mhm.
Yeah. This is awesome.
This has been
I mean,
incredible.
needed,
Mhm.
needed, needed,
Mhm.
especially to remind me that, hey, I got this,
Yes.
you know?
And to let folks know that there are resources.
Yes.
You do not have to struggle alone. Like
Mhm.
there's no reason. And that's why we wanted to do this show,
Yeah.
because we didn't find a podcast having this conversation.
Mhm.
At all.
And about for married people, for married gay people, for married
Right.
gay Black people. And so this was intentional, and I'm grateful that we have been able to do what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
Like, I'm grateful.
This,
So
yeah,
this has been
good.
wonderful.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So listen, we appreciate you for coming on and stopping by conversations on this couch with
Yes.
us. But would you mind letting the people know how they can reach you if they are interested in setting up a conversation with you?
Yes, absolutely. And I do offer free consultations, 15-minute consultations. Usually folks like to use that to kind of get a little bit more of a personalized feel for themselves of like, am
Hold
I
on,
the right
hold on, hold
person?
on. Let me
Because
shout
I've
this
never
out.
heard
Pew,
that
pew, pew,
Oh,
before.
okay.
Right.
She
Oh, is this
said
a shout
she provides
out?
Free
free
consultation.
consultation.
Get your bullet points
Come
Yes,
together.
on now.
yes,
Get your bullet
All
yes,
points
right.
together.
yes.
So
Go
thank
ahead.
you for that.
I
Uh,
will say too that our website is westlakehoustoncounseling.com. We can be reached at info@westlakehouston.com. I'm sorry, westlakehoustoncounseling.com. Let me get my own email address right. And then our phone number is also linked here, 832-262-4748. Now, I will also say, so I belong to a group practice. We have multiple, clinicians. And I will say that if I'm not the right fit for somebody, that
Right.
is
mm,
all right. We connect, we network. And so if we're not the right place for you, we can definitely provide you with some resources. And I also want to say too, and I didn't get a chance to say this, that
mhm.
your friends are not your therapists, your
Yes.
parents are not your therapists, your pastor is not your therapist, and nobody on TV
No, is
who
your
will remain unnamed
say that
is your
again.
therapist. Now, you can get things from people that are
Right.
utilizable. You can say,
That's
oh, I
right.
like that. I like that.
Right.
But nothing substitutes the work with a trained professional
Mhm.
who is skilled at helping you to address real clinical issues, relationship issues. It's
Mhm.
all under that umbrella. And so it's okay. You're not alone. There is hope. There
Yeah.
is help. So anybody is more than welcome to reach out to us. And like I said, if we're not the right place for you, we will absolutely try to help you to find a place that is, because there's a lot of resources. Here there's a lot of resources in a lot of places. People just don't know about them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Well,
Thank you so much,
this is
Devaney. Oh my goodness. This has been so rich.
Yes.
I'm sad for this to wrap up, but in honor of Tip, who told us the last episode was too
too short.
long,
She
too
no, she said it
short,
was too short.
too short. Tip, we did an
We
hour.
did an
Where were
hour
you?
for
Where
you.
were you,
We did
Tip?
an hour
You were
for
not
you,
here, Tip.
sis. Yeah. So Trina, let them know how that they can engage with Shellez and
So
Treve or Mrs. and Mrs. the podcast.
you all have been amazing. The support has been incredible. So I'm just gonna give you the main places. We are in like 7 different platforms now. Holy cow, in 2 weeks. I'm
Yeah,
so
awesome.
excited.
That's awesome.
But Spotify is the one that will send out the most for you. You can also find us on YouTube and of course Instagram. So I didn't put the things in, sorry. So
That's
at
all right.
Spotify, it's our link. At Instagram, it is Mrs. and Mrs. the Pod. And at what did I
Facebook,
say? Facebook is Mrs. and Mrs.
Mrs.
the
the
Podcast,
podcast.
and also at YouTube, Mrs. and Mrs. the Podcast. So
So you can link up with us. Make sure
yes.
that you follow us on all of those social media.
Subscribe, like, share. We're trying to get to
Yes,
100
dude.
followers
By the
on
end of this
Facebook,
week,
and we want to get to 200 followers on Instagram.
let's do it.
So super excited about all the things that you've been doing for us as our family. So excited about that. So we've made a modification.
Yeah.
So we're gonna air twice a month now, first and third. we're gonna we're gonna air the first and third Mondays.
I'm excited.
If there are folks you want to see, if there are topics you want us to talk about, please let us know.
Let us know.
We
send us a message in the
please.
chat, or if just comment on one of our posts, however you want to do it. Just let us know what you need to hear, what topics interest you. We're going to have, again, more conversations from the couch. We're going to check in with just the two of us, but just let us know, share with us.
Yes. So super excited. Thank you again, Devaney.
Yes.
Yes.
See you again on the next show.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a treat. I was so honored to be asked to be on this platform with you guys. And I'm so excited for all the different people that will be reached through this. I enjoyed sharing space with you guys today.
Thank you so much.
And as always, listen, make sure that you drink lots of water.
Please drink all
so
the
that
water.
you can continue to go to the restroom and stay out of people's
and mind your
business.
business.
Mind your business. We love y'all.
We love
This
you.
is Shellez
and Treve.
Mrs. and Mrs. The podcast.